Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us here at Unmistakably You. It is a really special honor tonight to be joined by Nicole and Corey, who just this past Saturday got married. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am so happy for you, and I'm so glad that I did get to see the video of your special day. I'm so sad that I couldn't be there in person. But for anybody who's joining us tonight, Nicole and Corey are coordination clients of ours who, of course, like many, have been affected by the COVID pandemic and for a number of different reasons decided to have a very small ceremony and make things legal this past Saturday and have postponed the rest of the festivities to next year. So they have very graciously agreed to be here to talk with us tonight about their sort of experience and journey of making that decision to do the sort of what I'm calling a micro wedding this weekend, and what it had looked like to put that together on what was realistically pretty short notice. So if you are in that situation right now, I certainly invite you to ask any questions that you have, and we'll do our best to answer them. But Nicole and Corey, thank you again for being here. And has your life drastically changed in the past 4 days since you've been married? No.
Still quarantined together, so.
Right. But you are now Mr. and Mrs. So big congratulations there. Can you fill us in a little bit on what your wedding plans originally looked like?
I'm assuming you're doing all the talking.
Smart guy.
So what our plans were a year ago?
Yeah. So what was the original sort of vision?
Yeah. So we originally had booked a reception at Brescia Clare Hall, which we're hoping to still be able to do next year. And our ceremony is going to be at the International Graduate Affairs building at Western. I just love the atrium there.
Beautiful.
We realized in March that things weren't looking great for our June wedding, and although we loved our date, we knew that it was probably good to reschedule sooner than later in our comfort zone. So we decided back in March to move everything to next June, and had successfully actually rescheduled everything and notified everyone that things were not happening this year.
Right. And I think like many, I mean, there's so many dates in 2020 that for anyone who's interested in numbers were really appealing dates. So yours was 6/20/2020, and that's a really kind of cool date to have. So the good thing now, I guess, is that you have that date as your true anniversary, and you get to celebrate 1 year down the road. So Nicole, you are in the healthcare field, and so you, I think, were one of the first who kind of early in March jumped on the postponement process. And I know that was a real struggle and a very difficult decision to make, as it is for many people. Are you comfortable saying a little bit about how you kind of felt through that process?
To be honest, for me, I was a little bit relieved. I don't do well with uncertainty. I like knowing that something is happening or not happening, and knowing that we probably weren't going to get a lot of certainty in the near future. It just made more sense to kind of plan something that we could be more certain about, which was next year. To be honest, I was not the most prepared for a June wedding. It actually was a bit of a load off because I really wasn't ready to do all of the things that I still need to do. It was just like, oh man, that checklist just got a lot shorter for me.
So it was a relief, which I guess is good. And if anybody listening is in that same boat, then know that you can sort of take a breather and have that extra year to plan. But Nicole and Corey, it was still important to you to have the ceremony this year. And can you fill us in a little bit about the reasons why that was?
Yeah, we back in March when we decided to postpone, we had talked about doing a small ceremony for some of our older family that we really wanted to have with us. And just because we both really wanted to get married in 2020, especially me, thing about odd numbers. Um, so we had actually already booked our officiant for October 10th, 2020, another awesome date.
10 2020.
Exactly. And so we were planning to do that, and more recently it kind of started looking like maybe the fall, at least compared to now where numbers are relatively low, potentially again there's that uncertainty where right now we're seeing fewer cases per day than we were a month ago, and we don't know what it's going to look like in the fall, and we hope that it's going to be just fine, but right now it's relatively safe. Things are allowed to happen now. And also, from a personal note, I am going back into the healthcare field where I'm going to be more exposed in July.
Exactly.
It was a personal thing for me, just based on factors in my own life.
Right. And for anybody who's not clear on what the government regulations are right now, you are currently allowed to have a socially distant ceremony of up to 50 people outdoors. Venues such as churches can host 30% capacity, socially distant, but receptions are still limited to 10 people or less, which makes it challenging because often the people who attend your ceremony also attend your reception. And that, of course, is just another one of those roller coasters that we need to figure out how to navigate, and one of those situations that is a challenge. So, Nicole and Corey, you chose to keep things very small, even though you could have had more people at your ceremony. And I know that was the right decision for you. And I think that a lot of people out there, I mean, you have to weigh the pros and cons for you, and figure out what is going to ultimately make you feel comfortable in the end. And I think that was a conversation that you and I had, and that you obviously had with each other and with your families. And ultimately, I think that you were completely happy with the decision that you made to have fewer than 10, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. And those ceremony restrictions were relaxed not very long ago. So, how long did you ultimately have to pull this all together?
5 days, six if you include the day of, and you probably should because we were still doing things in the morning.
I was the
Yeah,
second person in line when City Hall reopened Monday morning. So
yes.
I
So Corey, actually, do you mind just commenting a little bit about the process of getting a license currently? Because
sure.
London itself just reopened in terms of issuing marriage licenses. Up until this point, we had a lot of people going to St. Thomas. So what was the procedure for that like, Corey?
So I was worried it was going to be crazy after waiting in line for groceries for half an hour all the time. So I
Yes.
got 10 minutes before it opened Monday morning. I was the second person in line behind a guy who was trying to open a bar, which seems like just the weirdest time. But
True.
he was real friendly. So there was a security guard at the door who quizzed each of us about our symptoms and then just pointed us towards where to go once we were inside. And I was in and out in 5 minutes. I didn't bring Nicole with me. I just had her sign the paper and hand me her ID, and it was no problem at all.
Awesome. So as long as you go to the city website and print off the Government of Ontario documentation and have the appropriate signatures and appropriate pieces of information of identification, it's a pretty in and out process.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
was shocked it was that easy. I expected it to be quite a bit more difficult.
As things involving the government often are. So can you tell us a little bit about the elements that you incorporated into your day?
Yeah, well, we got married at our house on our deck, so we really wanted to kind of lean into the personal feel, especially since it was so small. So we were really lucky that because it was here, we could have photos of our dog, which was wonderful.
Important, I know.
Yeah, we had the meal was catered from one of Corey's favorite smoked meats places, which, normally when you have a venue, you're restricted to their catering. So this was really neat that we could kind of bring in elements of our own personalities and preferences.
Absolutely. And I know
And
that
the
that would,
catering at Brush is great, but you know,
You can't beat feeding people for like $9 each, though.
and I love that it was still something that is personal to you, that Corey, you
yeah.
really enjoy, and you didn't have to settle for, I know there was talk of pizza because it was a little bit safer to grab an individual piece and not have that contact between people. But I do love that you were able to find something that was still really enjoyable and personal to you.
Yeah, and we did try to make it as safe as possible, where we had just one person serving and would take the order. What do you want? They would plate it all and then put the plate on the sides. That there was no kind of close to close interaction for the meal. We didn't quite figure out the wine pouring until later, but wine could be poured by one person wearing a mask and have it just on a table, and then someone else can come and pick up their glass of wine rather than having someone go table to table, or just have bottles of whatever on the individual tables to avoid the close contact there.
I love that. And you definitely thought about the social distancing even during the dinner part.
I did the thing.
Yeah, so there you can see the traffic path marked on the floor and the X's and the cute cat. There we go. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your welcome station that you had set up for guests? There we
Are you able
go.
to see it now? Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
So this was at the end. I totally forgot to take any photos beforehand, but I had it set up with some masks that I had got from a seamstress, which was lovely. Nice Canada Day masks to take home with wash before use instructions and handouts for everyone with that. Lots of different hand sanitizers because you can only buy one or two at a time. So there are
Yes.
different types of individual hand sanitizer that I encouraged everyone to have one each. There were mints and Tic Tacs, which I had actually bought for the welcome packages for the actual big wedding, and they
Yep.
weren't going to last next year. But there's nothing worse than wearing a mask if you have bad breath. So I really encouraged everyone to take as many mints and Tic Tacs for their purse or for the day. And that was a real hit. There was also pump hand sanitizer all over the house, including here, with instructions for how to hand sanitize and how to wear a mask. And the little basket has medical type masks that have a little bit more protection than the cloth masks that we were promoting their use for the actual day. Then further on, we had instructions for who was going to use each bathroom, and we had each social group in a different bathroom and strict rules in the bathrooms. We took all towels out and used paper towels that were separated and had bathroom cans or garbage cans that didn't require touch, so it could be done really seamlessly. Again, Lysol wipes in the bathroom with instructions to wipe off high-touch surfaces, especially if you were accidentally using a bathroom that you weren't necessarily supposed to be using or ideally using. So we just had lots of different information out there for everyone.
I love how absolutely comprehensive and thoughtful every element of your day was. I mean, even to the extent of designating washrooms. So I think that that's just really indicative of the amount of care and thought that you put into everything that you do. So I'm really excited about what that means for your wedding next year as well. Can you share with us what you learned through this process of pulling together a micro wedding in 5 days?
Don't do it in 5 days if you can help it. Give yourself more time. That was the biggest problem. Was I was still working. We were both still working, and we just didn't have time to do it as calmly and comprehensively as we would have liked. The biggest thing that I learned with the social distancing and with all the kind of rules that we're trying to encourage people to follow is that it's helpful for them to know ahead of time what they're walking into, especially as the bride, where you're not there to greet them or talk to them or do anything other than have the signs on the wall. So there was a little bit of kind of confusion about, oh, can I come in and hug people and am I allowed to go table to table and serve wine? So just having a nice kind of package of information and probably a phone call as well would have been really nice, just because it is a little bit awkward, given that everybody is at a different place in their understanding and their level of concern. So I really think those are the biggest things is just give yourself more time and talk to people. People were very understanding, very supportive. We had a really great kind of outpouring of cards and emails, and so glad you went ahead and did it on your actual day. It was really nice because I think a lot of people we're not hearing a lot of good news these days, and one of the things we're hearing from people is finally some good news. This is so nice to see something awesome still happening these days, and people are still having things to look forward to and to celebrate, and people need that right now. So it was really neat to be able to be something that they could be excited about.
Absolutely. And I definitely agree that it's so nice to see people happy and smiling and having something to celebrate. And it's so completely understandable that you kind of get sucked into those social norms from the old days when you could just go hug someone and you didn't have to think twice about serving someone a glass of wine. And I think that it's really valuable for anybody who's thinking about doing this to really put some thought into how you're going to educate your guests so that everybody does stay safe. My mother-in-law was here this afternoon, and it's instinct to hug someone, but knowing that everybody has a different comfort level and we shouldn't be encouraging that at this point. It's really something that you want to communicate clearly to your guests. And I think that you certainly did a great job of that the first time through, and then even these thoughts that you're having in hindsight are really helpful to anybody else who's thinking about doing the same thing. So thank you for that. And I know that you said that you didn't have as much time on your day as you had thought you would have. Wedding days typically go very quickly, at the best of times. And then when you're doing everything yourself, I know that you felt very, very rushed, I think. Am I right in saying that? Yeah. And
It would be good to have kind of a point person running the show. I could not have gotten even half of the stuff done if it weren't for my maid of honor and best friend, Linda. Thank you so much. We tape off the floors. It took 3 hours. Everything just took longer than I expected. Social distancing is a lot harder than it sounds like, because not only do the tables need to be 2 meters apart, you have to have a pathway to walk in between. And it was creating that pathway that really was the added level of difficulty, because we have a fairly open house, and I thought it was going to be no trouble, and we had to redo it 3 times. It was so much more complicated than we thought it was going to be. It took so much time. And then the next day, when I wasn't downstairs and my maid of honor was doing my hair, she's amazing, there wasn't anyone downstairs to tell everyone how to follow everything and what was expected. So if there was someone that could kind of give that added information in addition to what was given ahead of time, and just make sure you can keep things kind of running smoothly, especially after the ceremony, since Corey and I also were going off to get photos done. So I really didn't see anyone to talk to them or give them the heads up of all the things that I'd thought of and tried to put on paper, but maybe didn't make sense to everyone from where I was coming from until 2 hours in. So it was a little bit late by then, and it would have been great if we had kind of had someone that was on the ground helping out right from the get-go.
Right. And I know that's normally my job. And because you were keeping your numbers so low, I couldn't be there to do that for you. And Oh, I just wish I could have been. But definitely, if you aren't in the position to have someone extra in terms of a vendor come in, because your vendors do count in your total number. So if you're trying to follow, and I definitely advise you to follow the government guidelines, know that your 10 people includes your vendors, it includes your service staff, it includes your photographer, it includes your coordinator. So I'm really looking forward to being able to take care of all of that stuff for you next year.
Yeah.
Now, Corey, you
So
had
is
another.
Linda.
Yes, Linda, I can't wait to meet you. You sound lovely. Now, Corey, you had another layer of difficulty in terms of getting things prepared for the ceremony because you were intending to live stream. So, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm just trying to see if I can dig up a photo that I just
And I
sent
was
them.
supposed to be projecting this photo, and my screen share
It's
is
okay.
not working.
We'll make it
so
work.
my apologies.
Oh, can I not do? There we go. Almost there.
No worries.
Screen share. Okay, can you guys see that?
There we go. Perfect.
Perfect. Okay, so this is a recreation of the setup we had. So the initial plan was just to use a laptop, but I'm really glad I didn't do that. So what we ended up with was an actual video camera. Gives you a couple big perks over just kind of pointing your laptop at something. Your video camera is going to have an optical zoom, so you can get a better shot without compromising your quality. And it's going to have a better microphone than your laptop does, because your laptop microphone is just designed to pick you up when you're, 2 feet away like we are right now. But our officiant was 15 feet from the camera inside our house with the doors open, so it just never would have worked. So there was an HDMI cable coming out from the camera going into a laptop. To make that work, I had a device called a Cam Link. It's $200, which is a lot of money to spend on a thing you're going to use once, but you can buy them used and you can sell them again for $200. So it's not the biggest deal in the world. And then I just had an old laptop running the paid version of Zoom. You probably do need that, because if you just use the free version of Zoom, your call cuts off after 40 minutes. And in your head, you're probably thinking, well, my ceremony is like 30 minutes, so that's fine. But the last thing you probably want to do is connect to your Zoom call early, because for sure some of your guests are going to. I connected 30 minutes early thinking that was crazy and nobody would be in that early and I'd have time to set up. But Amy was already in the call.
And I was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's cool. So it was 30 degrees on the day of our wedding, and we ran into some tech problems that we weren't counting on. Specifically that my brother's iPhone, which was running our music, overheated and stopped working. And my laptop that was running the Zoom call overheated and turned itself off. We did not realize that because we had not assigned a person to be responsible for monitoring the Zoom call. So that would be my last tip, is that given that you are going to have, 50 to 100 people watching this, if someone can make sure that it's working, that's probably good.
And I know as somebody who was on the Zoom call, all of your guests were like, who's got a phone number? Somebody call somebody who's in the audience.
And somebody did manage to find one of us that hadn't turned their phone off. In our wedding video, you can hear Nicole's dad's phone go off with his sister trying to track him down.
Yes. And I had texted your officiant and your photographer, who of course didn't have their phones on them because they were officiating and photographing. So
yeah, even my phone was off.
Yeah, so
So
we as the viewers had a nice little sort of chat amongst ourselves while we kind of hoped that the stream came back up, but things that
yeah,
you
we
wouldn't
had no
think about.
idea. No.
So Corey,
So
as
the
the
one thing that, sorry, the one thing that really did save the day was that because I was using a video camera instead of just the webcam in a laptop, the video camera itself was recording. So the video camera was capturing, a high def version of the events, which is better than what goes out by Zoom. So when we realized what had happened, I was able to pull the footage off the camera, cut the ends off, put it on YouTube, and we had a link out to all of our guests before we went to bed that night. So at least people did get to watch just a few hours after they had planned to.
which we very much appreciated. Now, as a tech guy, because I clearly know nothing, is there anything in that situation that could have been done to prevent the overheating? Like, had you, I don't know, put a fan on the computer, or
I
would that make
should
a
have
difference?
shaded the area where the computer was. We were worried about keeping people out of the sun, but I never really thought about protecting the computer. So I probably should have put up an umbrella, and yes, having a fan blowing at the laptop would have been great, except for all the noise that gets picked up by the microphone.
Of course.
I definitely would test that for next time. But I think just keeping it out of the sun would have made a world of difference.
Absolutely. And so, aside from the tech issues, any other recommendations that you have for people who might be thinking about doing a micro ceremony?
Stay out of your fiance's way. Conveniently, a video game I've been waiting for came out the night before, so I was fine.
Oh, Corey.
I think just give yourself a lot of time. Everything is likely going to take more time than you expect it to. If people offer to help and you can use them as help, that's probably going to be useful. And everyone has their own unique situation with what's going to be best for them and right for them and their loved ones and their family and what they have for their hopes and dreams for the wedding. I will say that, given that we're still hoping to have things next year, as far as a reception, got a little bit awkward with like presents and people wanting to come stand in the backyard of like, can we just come be behind you and watch from the ceremony? Or, can I send the link out to other people that aren't going to be there next year? So there were a lot of things to kind of consider, what you want it to look like and where your boundaries may be that don't make it awkward for next year. But it's all doable. You just have to kind of think of those things and be prepared for them and be able to defend what you want for your wedding and stay true to that. But I think it's absolutely the right choice for us. I'm sure it's the right choice for many people. Incorporate lots of elements that are your personal touch, and hopefully you can get the best of both worlds if you are doing your mini ceremony and then the big event next year, which is really what we're hoping for.
And I think that you bring up a really good point about the fact that there are just so many. I mean, I hate the word uncharted territory because I've heard it so many times since March. But I mean, how could you possibly anticipate that people would ask to come and just stand in the back of your yard? And how would you necessarily think about the fact that people are going to want to bring you a gift now? And then what do you do about gifts next year? And what about those people who want to share the Zoom link to, their third cousin twice removed? So I think that as much as you can try and anticipate what might happen and stay true to your desires and your personalities and what you really want, I think that you do have to have a certain element of go with the flow and keep the communication open between you and your partner and make sure that you discuss things like that with him or her so that you can come to a consensus that you're both comfortable with. Because I think that there are just so many sort of unforeseens that you might come across. So I do really, really appreciate you highlighting some of those for us, because I know that this is something that a lot of people wouldn't have thought of doing prior to COVID hitting. And it's definitely something that a lot more people are considering or planning, or, might be thinking about now that you've shared your experience with us. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
I really, really appreciate you being here with us tonight. Anybody who's watching, as always, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them via any means that's convenient. Shoot me an email, shoot me a personal message, give me a phone call. And I'm definitely looking forward to celebrating with Nicole and Corey next year, and with everyone whose wedding has been postponed for this year. But if you are looking to set up a micro ceremony and you need some help with that, don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you so much for being here. Have a great night. If you're interested in hearing more about streaming your ceremony, I'm talking about that on Sunday at 1 o'clock in our group, Wedding Planning Simplified. So if you're not already in the group, join that group, and I'll see you Sunday at 1. Take care and have a great night.